HomeGrid's first solar and storage podcast. Today we've got our all-star guests here. So David Parker and Dustin Douglas of Sol-Ark, along with Spencer Christensen and Jonah Small of Lithium. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're honored to be here at the, the first podcast.
The very first one?
Yeah, well, it's a first for me too, so I'm excited. Thank you for having us.
Well, welcome. Well, if you'd like, if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, give them a background of your experience within solar. I know you've been working in the industry for a long time.
Yeah, I've been in solar now for about 8 years. I'm a Texas boy from Austin, Texas. I'm a father. I got 4 kids. I'm part of the Sol-Ark family. I'm super happy to be here. Grew up in Austin and kind of stayed in the Texas area my whole life. After I got out of the military, went to the Longhorns. I'm a UT Longhorn, so real happy to be here at Sol-Ark. I run sales and marketing for Sol-Ark, and I'm here with my colleague Dustin Douglas.
Yeah, I'm Dustin. I'm the manager of the tech sales team. I also run distribution management at Sol-Ark. I've been here for roughly about 3 years now. I kind of started there right when the 8K took off. And kind of get to see the 12K and all the new future products. So started out in support and made my way over to tech sales and working with all these distributors and David and the team, and really getting a good time to meeting all these integrators as well, especially from Spencer and Jonah.
Yeah, super exciting. So I'm Spencer Christensen. I'm from Utah. So I was one of the founders of a group called HomeGrid, and we also launched a product called GridBox, and we provide battery solutions from 5 kilowatt hours up to 5 megawatt hours. And from there, we were acquired by a group called Lithium, which is a global battery manufacturer. And now I run sales and, we pretty much everything on the HomeGrid side. I have this amazing team, and we do all the business development. And so it's been really fun to kind of launch this on an international scale.
Yeah, and my name is Jonah Small with HomeGrid, GridBox, and Lithium, and I've been helping out Spencer with a lot of sales, regional sales with HomeGrid, and a lot of background process improvement. Originally from Georgia, so kind of a southern guy as well, but moved to Utah about 5-6 years ago, which is where I met the great group I'm working for now.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again for coming, especially the timing couldn't have worked out any better with Intersolar tomorrow. So it's great to have you guys come by. And yesterday it was a blast for the training. So, there's just so many exciting things going on right now within the industry, and being a part of seeing what your partnership and how it's evolving is just wonderful. And I can't wait for everything else to come for 2022.
Yeah,
we're
thank you.
Excited.
Your Intersolar is looking to be a pretty good show. It's we're going to have a booth. Lithium's going to have a booth there. We'll have a lot of exciting new products to show the public, and we're pretty excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and your organization seriously has been phenomenal. Like we deal with hundreds of different solar companies and distributors, and it's really cool to see such an A team here that you've assembled. That's really getting after it and pushing this market forward. I love being part of this market, so it's really cool to see star players from different corporations come and really participate in this.
Thank you so much. It means a lot, and we have such a drive for education from both a solar and storage perspective for our installers, homeowners, our OEMs, and I really appreciate that feedback. It makes it so much worthwhile to come in every day, and I love what we're doing.
It's an amazing team here, for sure. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Been recording for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
You're already podcasting.
So you're just splice it so far.
I was talking about Elon the whole time.
Yeah.
Just talking mess.
I think that's good though in a way.
No, I play tribute. I love it. It's super fun to compete with him.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and a lot of what the pioneers have done have really catapulted us to where we are today.
100%.
So I think it's worth looking at the history and how we actually got here.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's with boxing. It's you're only great if you box it great.
Absolutely.
So let's box it
Conor
great.
McGregor.
Yeah. I don't want to be compared to the tier 2 ones. We're tier 1.
Yeah.
We're going against tier 1.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just like saying that we're 500 times faster than Tesla.
There it is.
They have a 2,000 millisecond transfer time.
Yeah.
I have a 4 millisecond transfer
4
time.
milliseconds. It's crazy.
500 times
It's
faster.
within the sine wave. It's within the sine wave. It's you.
It's
a
UPS
true.
rate.
It's a true UPS.
That's right.
It's
In
crazy.
4 milliseconds, the clock on the microwave won't even know what happened.
Yeah.
And so, what's the level of time that is the transfer time that's acceptable for a UPS system?
There's not necessarily a standard. I've actually looked into it. So a lot of them claim UPS, but everywhere I've looked, at least online, I haven't been able to find like a standard for UPS. But usually, at least everything I read was like under 10 milliseconds.
Okay.
So
it qualifies.
to qualify, correct? Yeah.
And so,
Who knows? I might be missing something on the interwebs.
it'd be interesting to find out because if you could use it for medical
Mm-hmm.
grid as a UPS.
Well, a lot of medical facilities you'll see too, they'll have backup generators and stuff too. So like anything that has like a red outlet, if you're ever in like a hospital, that means it's on a backup circuit on like a generator usually. So.
Yeah, but even those generators are pretty slow.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
still got ramp
They
up
gotta pick
times
up,
and
yeah.
they gotta produce a good sine wave, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially on health equipment. You gotta
Yeah.
make sure it's running smoothly.
Like it functions, but all the computers are gonna shut down and reboot. And
Absolutely.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, from an electrical perspective, our inverter, if the grid drops in 4 milliseconds, it takes you over to the renewable assets, PV, batteries, generators, whatever you've got connected to it. So we'll get you over there really fast. We do have applications in the medical, IT, data centers, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
We got guys with fancy wine cellars that have connected up the wine cellars like, hey, everything can go to hell, but that refrigerator with my wine collection stays on.
Yeah.
If your wine collection's worth enough, putting an energy storage system right in front of it's not a terrible idea.
Just connect with the sommeliers and be like, who are your biggest customers?
There you go.
I think we
Oh,
have an additional system that we can offer them.
Yeah, wine country. We put a few multi inverter setups up in Sonoma County and different areas of what I would consider wine country.
I've even talked to a couple of guys in Florida. They're doing it, and it's actually like, at least for these guys, it was their insurance on the wine. Yeah, they were like insuring their wine, and so the insurance company was coming to them saying like, you have to back this up in case of an emergency, so that it doesn't all spoil or go bad.
Well, yeah, so the concept for me is what I try to tap into.
That's
I try
crazy.
to tap into that concept wherever we can in energy storage, which is the preservation of high value inventory. So HEBs, we talked about HEBs earlier, they have meat and fish and it's expensive, steaks and fish, and the grid drops, they want to keep their inventory cold. Pharmacy, love the pharmacy
Vaccines,
application.
yeah.
They have the medicine. They have to keep it thermally controlled, tight temperature range, highly monitored, mandated. If it's out of temperature range for more than X minutes, you have to throw it away according to the FDA. I mean, very tightly regulated. And banks, I think data preservation, maybe keeping the ATM working, if there's a storm. Certainly small food marts, convenience stores. If there's a storm, the grid's out, you look down the street, it's totally dark, but there's one gas station lit up and they're pumping gas. Oh, they have the Sol-Ark and some batteries. Yes. It'd be very helpful in that context. But in my learning in solar, the doctrine is follow the load, right? So, what are you trying to run, the solar. So for energy storage, I say, follow the business case. Follow the why do they want energy storage? What are they trying to back up? What does it mean to them? Kind of peel that onion a little bit. Then you can really have a solution that'll fit their needs.
It'll be really interesting though, because right now we're talking about like all backup applications. When we shift over, there's going to be an inflection point though, where it's cheaper across the world to have solar and batteries, and that's going to be the point where it's like you don't even have to have this conversation. It's just like it makes sense, and that's it.
Well, it also gives the person the opportunity to go completely off grid. I mean, you could be paying a bill now, but then a year or two later, you could have a system, size enough to go completely off grid. You don't even have to touch it.
It's such a fun concept because we love going down to like southern Utah. We're from Salt
Yeah.
Lake, and so the idea of just building a cabin and easily being off grid and not even have to worry about it.
Absolutely.
It's such a fun concept.
Yeah, the vacation homes, lake homes, beach houses,
Yep.
these kinds of things, a lot of them are off grid. We're from Sol-Ark, so we understand the prepper community well in America. There's a Sol-Ark in every bunker in America, and those guys we understand it's all off grid, right? So that's a good application. We've done some large installations with the Navajo Nation, so we're happy and proud about that.
They're
Hundreds of
telecommunications.
homes off
Yeah.
grid.
They mainly did telecommunication lines, so I mean, backing up their towers and servers and things like that, which was awesome because the 4 millisecond transfer time really helps out in that regard. So nothing's going down. So it's
Huge.
awesome.
Yeah, and another thing that we're very happy about at Intersolar, we're going to be announcing, is we have an integrated solution with these guys at Lithium, HomeGrid. It's in a single enclosure. There's 2 flavors to it. There's a 12K flavor and a 15K flavor. Slight dimension difference between those 2 inverters in terms of the size. The 15K is a beast. It's a little bigger. And we're very excited. So the stack series goes underneath. You got the standard silver bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 modules, 4.8 kWh per, and then the top goes in with the inverter. Single enclosure, looks really nice. I believe we'll have one at each booth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So you both are going to have each other's systems
Yeah.
at your respective booths.
The partnership just makes so much sense because we feel like the Sol-Ark inverter is by far the best inverter system on the market, and then we feel like we're the best battery system for Sol-Ark. So it's like we're coming, like David always says, this is best in class tech. Like there's nothing that really compares. If you do a 15K inverter and then you do the whole home, integrated system with all you have to do is decide how many of our Lego stacks you're putting on, how many kilowatt hours you want to offset, which as a salesperson or an installer, that makes it so easy, or as a homeowner. So then you got your whole home backed up. You can decide how many hours you want to be, like Dave said, it's like autonomous or just being able to go, non-dependent on the grid. And that could be, make it so you never draw from the grid ever, which is huge. And then when you use their smart load system, now you have full control and you never have to worry about it. So it's like, at that point, we're offering, a 200 amp pass through, which is huge. They've upgraded which is so significant going from the 12K to the 15K. And now we have a 500 amp surge for 10 seconds, which is now we can run everything on your home. You don't have to worry about it. Which is get rid of that critical load panel, and use one of our integrated systems.
So those are 2 great questions too. Is there a minimum for the stacked series? So
2 modules. So you get to like 9.6 kilowatt hours.
with a 15 kW inverter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we require at least a 50 amp hour battery. So with our system, with at least the 15K, but with batteries of that size, you want to make sure there's enough to get the internals components alive inside the Sol-Ark. So 2 batteries is absolutely, I would say, probably a minimum for the 15K.
Yeah, and that translation is that each of those modules we have in there is 100 amp hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Okay.
200 amp right there.
All right, nice.
Very similar with like the E-Flex, just to kind of put in perspective. They're 105 amp hours each, but we require at least 2.
Then Spencer, on the integrated unit, how tall can we go?
So you still can, because it's UL rated to go 8 tall, so 8 modules vertically. So we can do that. Then you have to look at kind of the dimensions of the ceiling and whatnot.
It's tall.
Yeah.
It gets really tall.
And just at that point, it's like, what can you reach?
Yeah.
So if you have 8,
Oh, especially the screen and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
times 8.
Need
So
a
that's the
step ladder.
38.
38.4 is the 8.
38.4
Yeah.
kWh with a 12 or 15K inverter in one box.
Mm-hmm. But it is very easy to run all of our units in parallel. So you can go up to almost 400 kilowatt hours just on our stacked unit by just running them in parallel. So, we can size it however you need. And there's some benefit to putting, instead of doing, an 8 module tall, you could do 2 of the 4s and then you double your output 'cause it's additive.
Yeah,
2 BMSs.
So we want to leave the homeowner in control and provide them as many choices as possible. It's always been the Sol-Ark thing. We're agnostic to the panels, we're agnostic to the batteries, we're agnostic to the generator. We really are into versatility and putting the user in control of how they want their system to come together. But having said that, when you combine the 15K and the stack series, either you have an integrated solution, maybe that's the right thing, and you can go up to 8 on that. Or perhaps you have the inverter by itself, and then you have 1 stack series, 2 stack series, 3 stack series. So it's scalable. Maybe there's a case if you have a 400 amp panel and you have a larger home, you got 2 15Ks and you got 4 stack series. So integrated solution, yes. Integrated solution, no. Independent, 12K, 15K. And then when we bring in our micros, we have the M1000 and the M2000, it's a 2-channel micro and a 4-channel micro. It's just an ancillary product, best-in-class technology backed by our world-class customer support. And we want to be able to have a Sol-Ark portfolio of products that says yes to just about anything. Smart load panel, yes. Hybrid inverters in 4 different sizes, yes. Micros, yes. So what's the best solution for this particular customer? I don't know, maybe it's 12 kilowatts of PV going into the 15K with another 5 kilowatts coming through the AC and DC coupled at the same time to 2 of their home grids.
So
Yes.
So cool.
We can say yes, and just
Crazy.
any, you can take out the Lego blocks and build just anything you want, and it's all Sol-Ark. You
Yeah.
can say yes to almost anything.
And like, how do you support all those different install needs, right? Where I think both of our brands try to support the capitalist nature of the market. Like, you know, there's so many other big brands out there that mandate that exclusivity with their own equipment. And we're still compatible with a lot of other inverters, and Sol-Ark is compatible with a lot of other battery brands. But it's just this natural meshing where we also want to support people if they say this is like the desire that we have for this installation. You know, we want to provide that good bonding of our brands and our products without mandating any kind of exclusivity.
Yeah, and that's, thank you, Jonah. It's the same thing that we do. So the smart load panel will work with anything.
Yep.
It's a smart load panel. It does what it does. Maybe you have a Sol-Ark inverter. Maybe you don't have a Sol-Ark inverter. Maybe you have PV. Maybe you don't have PV. It doesn't matter. And it can work with our competitors' gear. It literally can work with anything. So even in our own design with our own products, we're not about boxing anybody in and making it proprietary and get it with our stuff. I mean, we could have done that. We had the conversation. We're like, that's not our style. Make it open-ended, give it to the world, you know, support it, sell it, you know, promote it. Let's go.
It is great that you guys are compatible with pretty much anything that's on the market, but there is a certain synergy. Like, your communications was established to ultimately like work seamlessly with one another, right? For the battery specifications along with the inverter.
100%. And we love competing. Like, honestly, we feel like all the, you know, brands that have come before us, we pay homage for that. Was awesome. Thank you for opening the market. It's a great market to be part of. And we just want to be the best battery out there. And we found the best inverter out there. So exactly. Like, the synergy is awesome. And now we're presenting a full home, great solution that's very cost effective. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, and we sort of follow their thinking on that. You know, we don't really compete with our competitors. I mean, on the one hand we do, but we don't. We're really just not, and we're sort of competing with ourselves. Internal innovation, always trying to make it better, faster, bigger, more efficient. But at the end of the day, we really focus on the family. We're families. I got kids. I got 4 kids. I'm a new grandfather. He's got a beautiful baby girl. We're all families, and our moniker at Sol-Ark is powering families through life.
Yep.
Some may say it's corny. We sat around, we had to think about it, but that's really, at the end of the day, a very honest position of where we're at. And so what we do in our innovation, where we compete, there's Enphase out there, sure. There's Generac out there, sure. Tesla, we love those guys. Again, thank you very much. Great market, good stuff.
Appreciation.
We are trying to bring the world best-in-class technology and world-class customer support. That's all we do. And we think now that we're expanding our product line, it's really going to get exciting. Because I think the reputation for the support is out there. People understand it and they value it. I know the installers value it, the distributors value it, our battery partners value it. Here we come. We got a new lineup. It's 2022. Let's go.
I've really seen that at Sol-Ark too. Like, I've given them suggestions, and I know they listen to what I say and what the customers say, and like the innovation's there. Like, we've come out with multiple products, and we're like, hey, we'd love for you guys to be compatible with these products. And we've already seen the innovation start, coming forth. So it's cool seeing our 2 engineering teams, just very impressive groups. We've got Tom on their end, we've got Stu on our end, just leading the pack, and it's so quick. Like, I see on both sides innovation coming out every week, whereas other companies will go months, if not like years, before they innovate. So it's super exciting to be kind of leading the charge on the sales side and going to market and then going back to our engineering teams, and then being able to just very quickly adapt and keep ahead of the curve, staying at the best.
It sounds like it's really going to streamline residential solutions for them having not only their own power production, but also their storage system, so they can be in charge of their overall consumption. There's a couple of different programs that are actually designed to incentivize homeowners as well. So the VPP, so the virtual power plants, and then the demand response. Do you guys have any feedback on that, and really what type of incentive the homeowners are actually going to see?
Yeah, so that's an increasing trend that we see across the utilities in America. Of course, VPP is virtual power plant. The idea there is that a particular utility that has a city with 1 million people in it, and say 10,000 people had solar and they all have batteries, so you have 10,000 people with, say, 10 kilowatt hours each. They sign up for the utilities program, the utility would advertise the program, promote the program, say here's how it works, and then the customer would sign up. If everybody signs up, now they have this ability to aggregate all of that energy storage. They aggregate it in the cloud, right? And it is now a virtual power plant. The concept being that if the grid is in trouble, any state, Texas, California, insert state here, they can go in and pull the electrons out, and help the grid in time of need. So that's VPP. It's really cool because it enables the homeowners who have made an investment in a solar system and a battery system, et cetera, to directly participate in the energy markets. And there's one more way they can enhance their ROI of their system. So the Sol-Ark inverter, when you're grid tied, will sell power to the grid. You got that metering agreement, you'll sell power to the grid, will make you money that way. Of course, if we're providing power to the house, you're offsetting your KWH so you don't have to buy. So that's kind of saving you money. And then so the VPP, we have peak shaving. So if you want to program the inverter to go after peak shaving, if you have KW demand charges in the rate structure. So we have ways to intelligently interact with the grid to, maximize your ROI, either save you money on one side or perhaps make you money on the other side. VPP is another way to kind of generate revenue or on-bill credits. So each utility comes up with their program. So I think some of them would be rebates, some will be on-bill credits, that remains to be seen. The biggest one that's recently kicked off is on the East Coast, New York, Connecticut, Vermont, and maybe New Hampshire. And it's called Connected Solutions. A little bit like the SGIP program out here in California, but in that self-generation incentive program. Yeah, so we see these things kind of regionally popping up. As the inverter, there are standards that drive the communications that's required. So for the utility to look through the inverter, check out the battery, what's the state of charge, okay, Renee signed up in the program, his batteries are 100%, boom, we're going to take them down to 30% because that's where you've programmed your battery to be the floor. So all of that is going on, but the standards are Open ADR 2.0, IEEE 2030.5. We have Open ADR 2.0 now, and I believe we're closing in on IEEE 2030.5. So as the inverter manufacturer, we make sure from a communication standpoint that we enable that, that pathway and let the utilities interact with the system. Should the homeowners decide to do that, there's nothing mandatory about any of this. You want to be in the VPP program, sign up. You don't want to be in the VPP program, don't sign up.
Yeah, and some of those programs, right, they offer either like an initial rebate or a price off the cost of the equipment, or they offer, right, price per kilowatt hour that they're taking from your battery and solar, and some of them maybe even both. Right?
Well, and especially too, it gives the opportunity. I mean, the utility company could lease out the equipment to the homeowner, so they could get the 26% federal tax credit versus the homeowner actually having to put up all the front money. It also gives the homeowner, the ability to have off-grid applications. So if there is something that goes awry, they at least have backup power. So there's a lot of incentive, at least in that perspective, especially in an ROI type of scenario that you just want to be mindful of. So it's going to be a very hot program, especially in 2022, I will say. Yeah,
and what Dustin just said, there's different models, right? So it's maybe third-party ownership, maybe it's a lease program. So in the context of a VPP, as different utilities are rolling these out, we think we will see a variety of ways.
There's a lot of different programs, for sure.
What do you think the adoption rate is going to be?
Well, if anything goes into play, and everything that starts here always tends to get adopted within at least a year or two. Connected Solutions took off like a firestorm, so I think that's going to be popular. And with ERCOT and everything in Texas, I guarantee you it'll probably take off there. Houston right now just came out saying just anything new construction home-wise requires solar. So that's gonna, just like with California, it kind of did the same thing.
We know where we got that.
We understand the trends tend to happen here, and especially moving forward. That's why we always are very centric on this area and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, what would you say is the SGIP adoption, right? So the SGIP program in California, albeit not really a VPP program as I understand it, it was really just more about incentivizing the batteries. But I think the adoption rate of it was a very successful program from where we said.
The money went out instantly.
I was
Always.
is there
crazy.
I've heard SGIP is, like I said, I think I asked this question yesterday, but I think they're almost empty as far as
they
like
keep
the
putting
fund.
a little bit more in, or there was like some attrition that came back in, and so there's
Gotcha.
sometimes Tesla, frankly, couldn't deliver a lot,
Yeah.
and so there's been a lot of money dumped in because people signed up for Tesla and didn't get them.
Yeah.
It's a long process, right? Everybody filed for it like a homeowner, and
A lot of hoops to jump through.
We've done a ton of them.
And
Yeah.
if something happens
We have
where
a bunch.
you know the process, like from once they're approved, you have a year to get the install and go through all the paperwork and everything. And so yeah, they're pretty much on empty right now. So any money trickling back in is just from people not getting it installed in time or having problems. And that money gets thrown back in
Well,
the pot.
also too, the equipment being used. I know one of the requirements is you have to be able to report data every month, I believe, or so.
It's
Has to be
supposed to
on
store
the
data from every
CPUC
15
list.
minutes.
Every 15 minutes.
It stores
Okay.
it, and then if they're for homeowners, like for residential,
So you have to
applications,
aggregate it
You have
over-
to like provide that info if they ask for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I
it's a
know
data
there's
logging kind of
there's a lot of data logging, a lot of information that you have to share. So,
Mhm.
and if that equipment doesn't allow it, then you're kind of
Yeah.
up a creek, unfortunately.
Well, I don't think they'd approve it. So if you
True.
don't actually, if it's not on the list
That's
of
fair.
approved inverters,
CEC.
then you wouldn't get funded for it.
That's
Right.
And
But
that's why we're so excited about the Sol-Ark partnerships, because they have such a robust system. They have great programmers, and they're able to hit pretty much, like we said before, they can pair with everything, and they can pretty much do anything you want an inverter to do. So now you're able to just go in and make these partnerships with these utility companies, that know that their market's dying. They know that this is a better solution, so they're starting to cannibalize their own market by shifting over to storage and solar. And so we're able to get all these co-ops and, really tackle in on pretty much any rebate offered, which is pretty significant.
sounds like the VPP, I mean, for the virtual
It's
power
gonna be
plant is
huge.
going to be huge. And hopefully, I mean, with Intersolar tomorrow, we have the rally for push against NEM3, which really is, I'm hope for everyone who's working in solar in California right now is hoping that that doesn't go through.
Sure.
It sounds like the VPP though would be a great solution to kind of help circumvent that, to at least put more money in the homeowner's pocket. But I'm just curious about how difficult that is to get, and also how many people are not going to want to sacrifice their storage system to the whim of the utility.
Yeah, I mean that's like the big trade-off, right? Is that you're saving a whole bunch of money in exchange for not having total control of your system.
Yeah,
But-
and they have to. So I've seen different ones where it's like we guarantee you we'll pay you X amount of dollars per month, and we are going to get energy from your batteries at least 6 times a year, and every time we do it, it's X amount of money, kind of thing. So they have a very structured plan as to how it's going to work. But then to Jonah's point, I mean, every homeowner has to sit there and look at it and look at, okay, this is what I get from the program, but this is what the program requires of me,
Right.
and make a decision. And which we just enable the possibilities, right? The utility can talk through the Sol-Ark inverter to your system. Do you want to play in this VPP program where it works like this, and here's the rules, and here's what you get? I don't know. I mean, it's a homeowner's choice,
Right.
but we enable the technology.
Do they get the option? So, for like when it happens, so if it's 6 times a year, do they call it the dates, or is
Usually
it just
they'll notify you ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, especially with February that happened, last year in Texas, a lot of the times whenever they're actually, producing the power and have a scalability of how much power they're able to produce, they'll send out notifications to neighborhoods and places like that and just say, hey, we're going to be kind of going through rolling brownouts. Just be aware of it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be along that same line is, based off what their needs are. So they'll just notify you that, hey, this date we're going to pull a little bit of power to save us some money. So
What I've seen so far in the VPP area is utilities doing it. Right? And although Connected Solutions does seem to be an aggregate that's multi-state and involves different utilities, so I like that model. What I would love to see in Texas for ERCOT is to have an ERCOT program that then covered Encore in DFW, CPS in San Antonio, Austin Energy over here, Reliant down in Houston, rodeoed that whole thing and was an ERCOT program that said, okay, look, folks, there's, and there's a bunch of co-ops scattered in there, so it's really a crazy map if you look at Texas, but they could blanket the whole thing and say, all of you utilities are playing, all of you co-ops are playing, this is a state program from ERCOT, and it's VPP, and cut it loose across all of them and have one level playing field with one set of rules. 30 million Texans. I don't know how many have solar, pick a percentage, and then even a smaller percentage of that would have energy storage. Fine, but you're going to end up with hundreds of thousands of energy storage systems, in Texas. And if you could aggregate that as we went through February, we either get in trouble when it's really, really cold, which we've recently found out, or the typical thing is the first weekend in September, it's 114 degrees outside, and everybody's running their air conditioner.
Yeah.
That's typically when we get in trouble in ERCOT. We're kind of used to that. This February cold thing is new, but it really caught us off guard last year.
It also gives the opportunity for these utilities to, I mean, a lot of the times this was just mismanagement as far as power goes. So this also gives them at least a way out, if something goes awry, at least on their end. I mean, they have that virtual power plant ready to go to support their customers. So
Sure.
it kind of is a win-win for both parties, definitely, at least in my mind.
Absolutely. If you're talking to the CFO of the utility company, you're like, let's pick a number. There's a gigawatt. Let's say I can get you a gigawatt in the sky, right? A virtual power plant. Number one, you don't own it. You didn't pay for any of the equipment, zero cost.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you don't maintain it. Number three, it's not on your site, doesn't require any real estate. You don't have anything to do with it. But you now have a contractual obligation with all these people that signed up to the program that says you can get the electrons when you need them. Emphasis on when you need them, right? They're just sitting there, and if the grid gets in trouble, you can go get it. Well, that's when the thing's the most valuable. When the grid is in trouble and they really, really need it. In Texas, we have the load thing and the pricing, and we go up to $9,000 a megawatt hour. We start banging our head on that. It's the cap at ERCOT. And whenever we get up to $9,000 a megawatt hour, the grid is in trouble. Everything's going. The whole Texas is lit up. We're going like gangbusters. And so that's the time. That's when you get this power. If I'm looking at the CFO and say, you don't own it, you don't pay for it, you don't maintain it, you don't have nothing, not on your balance sheet. Oh, and by the way, when you really need the power, it's there. What? You say no to that? I mean, like, come on.
Especially like as populations continue to grow, and they see it in a lot of places, right? Like the cost of infrastructure and transmission lines and things like that. And so you have some utility companies that are going and putting in batteries at substations to try and offset those loads during peak times. But I feel like it's kind of a bit opinionated on my part, but the VPP is kind of where I would see things going over the next 20 years as we continue to step away from coal-powered, power plants and things like that. It's that if everybody has a small battery and solar on their home, or most people do, then that's how you have the cleanest step away from that industry.
Yeah, and we're really talking about decentralization, right? Centralization and decentralization, right? The whole thing has been centralized historically. You have a big nuclear plant, gigawatts, bam, it sends out the power. You have a big coal plant, sends out the power. You have a big natural gas plant, sends out the power. Very centralized, large scale, energy business, and huge capital amounts, tons of money, all kinds of things. You hear about we want to start a nuclear plant with a $5 billion budget, and you're halfway through and you're overrun, now it's a $10 billion plant, and all these kinds of things, right? It takes a lot of money. Take the whole thing and just open it up and flip it out on its side and push all the power out to the nodes. Your house is a node, yours is a node, mine's a node, this office is a node. If every node had a little power and a little bit of batteries, it's all flipped out. And what's your need for a big centralized plant anymore?
Well, I
I
think
don't know, not much. Well, there's a lot of math that would determine the answer, but from a model perspective, we want to flip it inside out and take it out to the nodes.
that's why what's happening tomorrow and with the CPUC is such a big deal here in California. If net metering 3 passes, then they're going to charge monthly fees whether you have storage or not. And so just to be connected with the grid, even if you are producing the majority of your power, whether it be 100% and you have your storage to further offset your time of use, you're still paying X amount of dollars per month to the utility companies. So they're driving that whole concept away. It's really, I'm curious, how many people are actually adopting the virtual power plant in California versus the rest of the country. And, why California specifically, as one of the largest economies, globally, is actually having such a push for actually having more centralized plants versus decentralized.
Yeah, I don't know, because there's the one nuke on the coast that they were going to shut down, and they were going to shut down early and whatnot. So on the one hand, you're looking at traditional sources with big centralized generation. And if it's not the favorite technology, coal, nuclear, whatever, it's like, oh, we're going to close it. California would be very environmental. That's great. But where's that power going to come from?
the utilities because they're going to go ahead and build it themselves and say, you know, sorry everyone else, we're just going to take more money from you because we want bigger, better, and we need to pay for the transmission lines.
Well, yeah, hitting the solar owners with a monthly fee out of, that wasn't there before, it just like comes out now. Man, that's, you know.
Well, in terms
that's
of like
not cool.
adoption of the VPPs, at least for the installers and distributors that I've spoken with in those areas, it's become so popular for new installs that they won't even use equipment that's not certified through those programs, right? So when we come to those distributors and installers, they want to know that we're compatible with Sol-Ark because they're qualified to be used in those programs, because almost every homeowner they're talking to wants to save that money and they want to use that equipment. So I feel like in those areas where it's happening, from those conversations with installers, it's almost like a must because it's being adopted so much.
Do you know if commercial applications also qualify, or is it just for residential?
I'm not sure.
So it seems like that would be a great opportunity, especially with GridBox. You have such a you have a larger capacity, so you could actually like further. It seems like there would be a larger drive for that type of program from in the commercial space.
Yeah, because that's the problem, is that when you have like large factories and large businesses, you still have this underlying demand for nuclear power or coal power, right? 'Cause even if you get all of the homes that have batteries on them, that doesn't mean that you can power the factory down the road, right? So you still have this demand for it. So it'd be great to see if you can implement VPP with commercial projects, but at least in regards to connected solutions, I'm not sure.
It's definitely more geared towards the residential side, at least at this time.
But most of the co-ops that we're doing are all GridBox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So, like, it's just so simple. They just have like a 5 megawatt hour battery flopped in the middle of the community.
Yeah, because you have that spectrum, right? It's like you have the centralization of the power plants, and then you have the model where it's all in the residences, but you also have those step-down stations and transmission stations along the way where they can put larger batteries. And so there's just this full spectrum of, how can we step away from this?
It's really
exciting. And to what he said, I'm all for it, both sides. So they're dropping megawatt hours next to all the solar farms. They're putting them next to substations, which is more out on the decentralized side.
Right.
And then I'm all for everybody having a home that's got energy independence with batteries and whatnot. But I think you need both. And to Jonah's point along the way, big coal plants over here, little towns over here, a couple of substations, energy storage, and lots of energy storage. So a little bit of all of the above.
I'm just curious, what percentage of the market is California for you throughout the U.S. For both Sol-Ark and Lithium and HomeGrid?
For our business?
Yes.
Well, we started here, so I started HomeGrid with Stu. Stu's been in the game for 20 years. He pioneered lithium iron phosphate, so he just knew exactly what the right product was going to be for the market. And so I came out to California. And we developed here, so we only left California, and we were in Hawaii a little bit, 6 months ago. So for us, it was kind of like at the test bed and like where we did all of our initial installs.
Yeah, you'll have to correct me. I would say probably like California, Texas, Florida, and some areas in the Northeast are probably the biggest contenders for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree
Puerto
with that.
Rico's great.
California is probably number one as a state goes. I mean, I haven't looked at the analysis, but if I did, I would imagine California is probably number one. But Florida, Texas are strong. North Carolina, the East Coast is picking up steam with connected
But it's
solutions.
kind of everywhere now. It's super fun because I've got 14 sales guys, throughout the country, and all of them are super busy. Like it's just like everybody's starting to see it. Because what's happening is these automotive grade batteries, these prismatic cells, the price point, because everyone's adopting these electric vehicles, the price point's significantly lower, and we're going to hit a point in the next 5 years where we are cheaper than the grid. So it'll be the whole country. It's just a better solution.
Yeah, and the grid. Let's talk about this for a second. We have never really exported natural gas as a country until recently. And we have a lot of natural gas, right? And you can read a book out in North Dakota in the middle of the night. They're flaring the gas everywhere. It's like daytime. You can also see it on the satellite image at night. You're like, is that a town? It's like, no, that's the Bakken oil field. It's really pretty wild. But so with all this, we are now capturing a lot of it, and we have exportation out in California here. We've got one down in Corpus Christi in Texas. I think there's a couple in Texas. I know there's one maybe over in Florida. They take the natural gas and they cool it way down and they liquefy it. and then it becomes LNG, right, liquid natural gas. Compression is 600 to 1 when they cool it down. So a tanker of LNG is 600 tankers of gas. They compress it, cool it down, put in these funky looking ships, and they send it over to Asia and Europe, where they pay 28 cents a kilowatt hour up to 40 cents a kilowatt hour, a whole lot more than our 10 or 12 cents here in the US. So the net effect of that has not been felt yet, but it will be felt. And the net effect of that is it's the predominant baseload generation fuel we have. We got some coal plants, but you sure aren't permitting another one. And they're shutting down the one that exists.
Yeah, shut them down.
Nuclear's not
Nuclear.
happening.
You can. I heard Bill Gates was building a big nuclear plant in Idaho or Wisconsin or something. So I guess there's still nuke going on. Fine, they're building a huge budget thing, lots of money. But once you crank it up, it goes. I think the studies I've read said a fully commissioned nuclear plant would make power for around 2.2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is really pretty good.
It's mainly just a safety concern, I believe, at this point, design and everything. They're obviously not trying to have another Chernobyl or something.
But as we export the natural gas, it's going to put upward price pressure on the cost of a kWh in America. It's a given. It's done. I mean, it'll happen slowly. It won't, the revolution won't be televised. But sure as I'm sitting here, it's going to happen. And it's already started happening slowly.
So you're saying that it's going to increase the price per kilowatt hour?
Yes,
for the average consumer?
yes. Because if the utilities are, so I'm in a big co-op. Austin Energy is right next to me. Go up to DFW's Encore kind of thing. Very familiar with all the utilities in Texas and how they work and whatnot. And they buy the natural gas. I mean, they buy it, commodity, buy it in volume, all that good stuff. And they take it to the natural gas plant and they burn it and boom, make gigawatts of electricity. But that's the big pole in the tent across the United States. Natural gas, guaranteed. And what we're doing is taking that baseload fuel and sending it to 2 other markets.
Oh, it's so unnecessary too. It's just kind of like we already have solar. Like you can get it for 3 cents a kilowatt hour. It's just like we're just like kicking ourselves and damaging the world for it's so unnecessary. Like, we already have this solved. Like, let's just do it.
Especially with technology. I mean, I've only been doing this for roughly a few years, and I mean, I'm seeing 500 watt, 600 watt panels, and I mean, everything's just getting bigger and better. I mean, it's flying.
Yeah, and there's a movement towards our industry. So there are, there's multiple generator companies, coming into solar. There's roofing companies, coming into solar. There's other different companies that are like, hey, we got to get into this battery business. Last night we talked to a fine gentleman at the event. He was a general contractor. And he goes, look, I'm a general contractor, but everybody keeps saying solar and storage and solar and storage and solar and storage. He goes, I guess I'm going to be a solar company, because it's getting momentum and it's pulling a lot of people into the industry. Where are people in other industries around like, hey man, we may want to go play over there in that industry. It looks like they're having a lot of fun. So it's got a lot of momentum.
It's very lucrative. A lot of people are very nervous, though. A lot of solar contractors here in California, I know I keep going back to Net Metering 3, that's coming up, but they're having a huge rally tomorrow to really draw some attention to it.
A lot of people talking about that. I mean, I don't know how many conversations I've had with just, different people in the California area, and they're stoked about going to this thing. So there's a lot of pushback for sure.
Yeah, the whole industry's, wishing California well and, good luck. I hope it gets defeated, right? You don't want M3 to be adopted.
Yeah.
Right.
I just wonder how many people...
M3.
Yeah, shut it down. It's stupid. Like, why are we... Yeah, it's so annoying, too, because it's like you have the greed of these utility companies coming in and just, squashing the innovation. California should be a beacon of, sustainability, and instead it's like you have these, billionaires that are just showing their greed over and over, and it's super frustrating.
I wonder if they're doing it just to see what kind of rise they get out of everyone. But how many people need to go for them to say, oh, okay, well, that's enough. So we see that, you've got, 30,000 people that showed up to protest this change. So that's the threshold we were wanting.
Yeah,
no,
hopefully
for
we.
sure.
Yeah, hopefully we.
It's like a, it's like a
Get the right number
petition.
of
You
people.
have so many signatures.
Because if it's just us out there holding a sign,
Yeah.
it's like,
Please
we're-
don't.
It's like Jonah and Spencer and
Yeah,
Renee and Parker.
Yeah.
There's only
I'll
4.
bring the
They
stakes.
planned it during Intersolar. It's super frustrating because I'd be there in a heartbeat. That sounds amazing. We need to shut it down.
I think there are a lot of people going, and even I've spoken to more people that are planning on attending the rally, even in lieu of Intersolar on Thursday tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So it's,
Right.
I mean, and I'm not sure if they're planning on going the following day, but it is a 3-day show, so they get a little bit more time.
Right.
I mean, to have the rally on the same day as the
first
first
day
day of the show is probably,
Yeah.
wasn't an ideal timing, but I'm really hoping for a big turnout, and I think
Absolutely.
everyone's going with the highest level of optimism possible, because it is unfortunately going to be really detrimental to our industry overall if that actually passes.
Well, and I think that adds to the flexibility, especially with the HomeGrid and Sol-Ark solution. Is at the end of the day, you can still always size it appropriately to be off grid, so you don't have to pay that fee. So
Have you had anyone just say,
But you can't
just
disconnect.
forget
I
it, I
have.
want to disconnect
I
from the
have.
utility?
I personally worked with a guy. He started with a single 12K, and last year in 2020, we worked and sized his system for another 12K and some batteries, and he removed his entire line, canceled his service
Where was it?
altogether.
Because I'm pretty sure like SCE.
Some
you
places
cannot-
mandate it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they mandate it in SCE.
It's like illegal to
Um,
disconnect from electricity.
I
You make
want to
it
say it was in.
illegal to
Yeah, you can't
disconnect.
disconnect.
Yeah.
It
You
depends
can't
highly on.
unplug from the matrix.
Yeah, I know. Well, it depends
Pretty
highly on the
much,
city or county that you're in and what state, but some areas like you're not allowed.
I want to
to
say
wild
this is like in
concept.
Kansas or
Yeah,
something.
Kansas, I'm sure is
They
pretty
were pretty lax, but I mean, I
Yeah.
kid you not, this guy was like, I'm done. I'm fed up with this. I don't get very many outages, but I'm just getting raked over the the amount of money I'm having to spend. I've already want storage. I'm tired of going off grid, so he just sized it and did what he had to
the
do.
old manual transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he had them come out and
Goodbye.
remove the service. Like he basically
Wow.
removed the lines and everything. He's like, I'm
Wow.
done. So I kudos to him. I was
Yeah,
very
it'll
happy
happen a
for
lot
him.
too, because it's like so the inflection point will happen. So SCU like last year they went up 14% in price,
Mm.
on average going up 11%. Ours is plummeting the price point, so I mean everybody's gonna be like, give me off that, don't stop charging me, I don't want to touch you. You guys are like the worst companies. Like
Well, I
everyone hates
think
their utility
Puerto
company.
Rico and the islands are a great case study for that too,
Oh,
where they
yes.
have this massive grid instability. Where when we were down there a few months ago talking to some homeowners, I mean they were living in almost like the equivalent of like Beverly Hills level areas, and they'd gone without power for 4 months, 6 months, and the utility company just recently reconnected the last person who was
So
off
long.
power for a year. And so down there, you're starting to see like people are just sick of the grid.
Mhm.
They're like, take me off grid. I want to disconnect. I want to do exactly that. And so the islands are a great case study
Absolutely.
for it too.
And there's a lot of flexibility there too. I mean, you have people ranging from large 12K systems all the way down to the 5K. I mean, there's a lot of different ranges there, different types
Totally.
of houses.
I wonder if one of the reasons that utilities like SCE don't allow you to disconnect from the grid is what happens if you sell your house? So you disconnected the grid, you said take out the service, and then 5-10 years down the road you have to move, and the person that buys the home is like, well, where's the power? Even if it is up on the roof, now they're kind of on the hook for replacing the batteries at whatever time frame that they need to, or
Well,
their
maybe it's
energy needs.
Maybe it's just coming from like the public policy side of things too, where the only thing I could think of is that you have an area where they don't want people to disconnect from the grid and just have this slum house that's there, and so maybe in an effort to kind of protect the visual appeal of the area or the quality.
HOAs type
HOAs
stuff.
and things
Yeah,
like
I
that,
can
but
see.
then the side effect that nobody knew when they wrote those policies is that right now you can't have power on your own. Like there's no way to have an off-grid home.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as it gains popularity because it's still like this is so fresh in the curve of like adoption. I think as it gains popularity, instead of replacing the old equipment, I think people are going to start getting more and more choices to get off grid.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty like, in the next 15 years, it'll be pretty common to be off grid.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look backwards, let's say 10 years, right? So 2022, let's look back to 2012 and everything that's happened from 2012 to 2022, throw that to 2032. It's going to get crazy. I mean, if what's happened in the last 10 years just flips again, there'll be a whole bunch of people off grid. There's going to be all kinds. I think there's a lot of money and smart minds and innovation going on in the battery space. across the world. There's aqueous batteries, there's saltwater batteries, there's urea batteries. I mean, they got a little bit of everything. Everybody's trying to crack the nut to where they get good power density at a really good cost profile and good electrical performance. It's going to move the bar. Right now, LFP is the favorite chemistry, right? Lithium ferrophosphate, love it. Seems very functional, it's robust, it's very safe. That's great. Is that going to be the predominant chemistry in 2032? I don't think so.
Kind of on that point, like, what interesting thing about our side is, the one Stu Graham pioneered the process for lithium iron phosphate. So he was one of the initial, and he ran it at Valence, which is part of our group now. So we kind of know. He's got the mind for it. We pretty much know what the next chemistry is going to be. Maybe they'll come out with something crazy, but it takes up the adoption of lithium iron phosphate was like 20 years, right? So everything takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
There were some really cool solutions. There was the one where they were like making molten salt, but then they realized they were putting like a volcano, and you don't want to put that on someone's house.
How's that
like
battery
an
work?
LG
Right?
is
It's a volcano.
It's a volcano.
Let's have a volcano, no
So it's a
worries.
cool solution, but it's like definitely on the utility side.
Can you say UL 9548?
Our batteries are ready on fire.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Cannot
It's a
catch ours
volcano.
on fire. We still had to do 8 months of testing on it. Yeah, no. So it'll be interesting, but I do feel like the price point is like going to be so aggressive in the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, for the next 5-10 years, it's lithium iron phosphate, because even like the sodium formulas and like other formulas, it takes so long that you read these really cool articles, but it's all still in testing. They have no way to manufacture that on a massive scale, and it's going to take 5-10 years to even start to see that.
Well, and to put in perspective, I mean, the different applications where batteries are being used. I mean, EV charging, EV vehicles in general. I mean, at least from different shows that I've been at, 2030, there's like no more internal combustion engines you're allowed to buy. Anything new is, it's all EV.
I love it.
So that's going to make a huge difference for especially homeowners, as they're going to, you have a giant battery bank on wheels that you can go E to G, E to H,
So
or
cool.
however you want to look at it. So there's going to be a lot of different opportunities in that space.
So I'm saving up for the 2029 Corvette.
There you go. 2,000
Fast and
horsepower.
loud, baby. Fast and loud.
Yeah.
But even though I'm tearing up the planet.
So,
Everyone's waiting for the Lightning truck too. I think
Yeah,
that has the
that's what
biggest
I'm waiting
battery.
for.
Ford
Yeah.
Lightning and the Chevy just released their EV truck that they're coming out with as well.
And
I
the
love seeing
trends that come with that are V to G and V to H, right? Vehicle to home, vehicle to grid. That opens up a whole new area. I mean, it's a rolling battery, right? And
Yeah, when you're talking about like 100 or 150 kilowatt hour battery
It
pack in
is.
these vehicles, it's
Yeah.
like it's
It's not a small battery bank that you're
No,
working with,
it's-
too. It's something that can last for definitely over a day, if not more.
Yeah, I
Would you
saw
have
that ad
storage
with.
as well. Like, or would you just have the vehicle?
So it kind of depends. It kind of gives you that opportunity because, like with the Lightning, they have that 9.6 kilowatt AC output on there. I mean, technically that's a 50 amp breaker. You can land that on the Sol-Ark. You're good to go. We use it just like any other AC source because that's usually how they charge too. So,
Yeah, AC couple your vehicle to the solar.
Yeah.
I would say like day to day, it's probably better to still have solar and
Absolutely.
battery in your house.
But in an emergency,
but in
backup.
an emergency, it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
fantastic solution.
Well, like I said, yes, it's like the price is going to be cheaper for solar and storage across the world very quick here. So you need your battery to be like day to day, net metering right now, and then in the future, all of it will be powered off of your solar and storage. But yeah, in the case of an outage, it's perfect for it.
well, and
Because
two,
nobody's going to use their car to power their home. You got to use your car to go
Drive to
places.
work.
Yeah.
Yours
Like, sorry,
always
we can't
connected.
drive anymore because that's like has to stay in the garage.
That's right. He just said, Dad, you can't take the truck. I'm gaming.
Yeah, sorry, man.
well, in terms of charging too, I mean, think about it. I mean, if everybody's on grid, everybody's trying to charge their vehicle, you got to be mindful of that. So the solar is going to be a huge play in that regards. So you're not having to disrupt the grid. You're not doing anything there. You can have all of your charging right inside your home. Off renewables.
Yeah, what we do need though is we have to have we have to stop powering our electric vehicles with coal. Like we got it's just like
it's ironic.
just dumb, right? We're in this weird transition. We need to stop doing that. We need to find like renewables and sustainability.
Yeah.
Power.
Well, in Texas, we had that ice storm in February, and the very just kind of ironic situation that happened. We had the wind turbines, but they were using like petroleum based or like oil based solvents to remove the ice to get them to spin again. I was just like, it's kind of a little bit backwards, isn't it? But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, it's like, I got this great battery in my truck. Where'd you get the electrons? From the coal plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
I thought they had like types of like heat strips that they would have used for like the wind turbines like that.
I don't know if they were able to be used as quickly because I mean that storm came in like super fast. I don't know if there was videos of helicopters, people out there spraying the turbine.
Yeah, like they de-ice a plane or something. Because they weren't ready. They didn't have anything proactively about it, so they were just reacting to it. Like, okay, we'll spray that thing with hot water or gel or whatever they were doing.
It was petroleum or.
The weatherization has been a lot of effort in Texas, weatherizing the turbines to heat strips or something to prevent the formation of ice on them and lock them all up. Same thing with the valves in the natural gas plants. We lost several natural gas plants due to just basic valve area, trying to get the gas from this side of the plant over this side of the plant. Like, well, number one, put a space heater next to the valve. Number two, maybe put a little shed around it, or thermally control the valve to where it functions in cold weather. But in Texas's defense, it's like, okay, it's 8 degrees outside here. It's total ice storm. You know how often this happens? It's like not a common problem in Texas. Well, so we did get caught off guard completely.
And back to the EVs, I mean, that would be a perfect opportunity for people to be like, I mean, at my house, and I mean, I'll just go off of personal experience. My house was, I mean, we would have power, we'd lose it for 2 hours. We would have power for an hour, we'd lose it for 2 hours. So that type of scenario, I would have loved to have E to H in that case, and I would have just powered, especially with a 12-month-old at the time or 6-month-old at the time.
That's right.
It would have been nice because she was bundled up and I was in like 6 layers of jackets, so it was fun.
Well, and with everyone working from home nowadays too, it's like it's really necessary. If you lose power, you can't connect to Wi-Fi. You don't have any none of the lights are on. You're not going to be powered up, even with a hotspot. I mean, there's only so long your computer and your phone are going to last.
Everybody's jumping on the same network or cellular network for the hotspot, so everything gets bogged down and slow, and you can't do what you need to do. So
I think that happened down in New Orleans during the storm, right? When everyone was on the cell phones and you couldn't make any phone calls because everyone was trying to do it at the same time.
Yeah,
sure.
The only buildings that still had power were all the microgrids, like the apartment complexes that had solar and battery on them. Like 100% community resources for everybody.
And I think people see that. So when stuff happens and hey, New Orleans just took out this whole area. What's up with that apartment? Oh, they got a microgrid. They're all, hey, everything's working over here.
Yep.
People definitely see that. Like, I want my place to have a microgrid.
Yeah.
So it starts to gain popularity. I think multifamily is a great application. They need to really. The problem is with a 400-unit apartment complex that has 400 meters. What do you do? With, how much of the roof do you have? And you're in 201, but I'm the unit under you. Do I have some of the roof? Or it gets real weird.
Yeah.
Well, that's about the compact series, right? That's what you were talking about, using that for multifamily units.
Yeah, or tier apartments and condos. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what you guys talk about, either just having, you have like a Sol-Ark 5K with our 5 kilowatt hour wall mounted one in like the maintenance room for the apartment. And you can keep your fridge running and your Wi-Fi on and your lights, but you don't want to be running your washer and dryer and keep everything backed up for a day or two. And one guy I talked to is even bouncing on the idea of doing that, plus having a solar, like flexible solar array you could drape off your balcony on the apartment complex to try and charge it for longer. But in most of the apartment complex cases, it's typically it's just like emergency backup from what I've seen so far, or they try to feed the entire complex from the solar on top just evenly. But
And so is that a good pairing too? Like, so 5 kW Sol-Ark inverter with the compact, even so at 5 kilowatt hours, that still like meets the requirements.
Yeah,
that's a good system, and it's not going to break the bank for most people.
And like you say, and Jonah was saying earlier, I mean, Puerto Rico is a great opportunity in that kind of space. I mean, there's, like I said, there's a wide variety of different types of houses. I mean, there's people that are doing 2, 3, 12Ks because they have the space. But there's also a lot of multifamilies and little apartment complexes, things like that are just doing 5Ks individually. So it's a great space, a good opportunity, and it's a great testing ground for sure to see application.
Yeah, even on the 5K, we have applications where it's not something we're purposefully trying to enable, but just kind of happens. the RV market, kind of gets a hold of the 5Ks. Hey, I want to run my RV, and so different boats. I got a houseboat, all kinds of little stuff.
Yeah.
Really, with the 5K, because it seems like that'd be like, it's a great size inverter. I love that for like a variety of applications, but for an RV, I'm just curious that like people are actually like putting that in and then connecting it to their 48 volt.
There's a guy that he retrofitted a bus, and he has panels over the top of it, and he has I want to say it's an 8K inside, and made some space, made some batteries, and it works.
And it's got all-in-one
his wife travels.
Like if you're going with like Victron or like some of the other systems for those that people commonly use, you're having to buy multiple pieces of equipment, get oriented with these
dedicated space for sure.
So it's nice to just get like one thing.
Yeah, that's my favorite comment when we show people on the webinars and stuff when we're interacting with the public, and we show them photos of our installs. We got some great looking installs with HomeGrid, good looking installs with Fortress, Simplify, etc. Sol-Ark plus batteries. And the most common thing people say is, where's all the other stuff?
What's all the equipment that
Where's all the other stuff? I think we just smile and say it's in the inverter.
Or they ask for a BOM, bill of materials or something. You're just like, really, just anything to meet EDC code. I mean, that's about it. Whatever your AHJ requires. That's
inverter, smart load, battery. There's your bomb.
It is game changing. I mean, from working in solar for the past 10 years, we've done a variety of different mobile applications, and everything from the charge controller, battery management system, communications, all of the breakers, combiner boxes, cables. I mean, the list goes on. And to then just have a single SKU is pretty game changing. It's super exciting.
Being from Texas, we try to make everything simple. So as we add new products, we try to make it as easy as SKUs as possible. We like things simple. So
Well, and also the same unit to further that thought, we're super happy that we did this. I am. The same unit handles 50 and 60 hertz grids. So we don't have another model if we want to go outside the U.S. to a different grid frequency. It's a setting for us. And multiple service voltages, 220 single phase, 120 240 split phase, 120 208 volt 3 phase, and 50 or 60 hertz grid. That's all one inverter, which we can take that into lots of different markets, and we don't have different SKUs because we have the warehouse and we got our truck drivers and the forklift drivers. We're trying to keep organized, so we like to keep it simple.
It is. Does it do 50 hertz at 230 volts as well? Okay, so really
it's
it can go virtually anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 220. I mean, it just depends. I mean, 220 volt single phase, it has a range. So if you just have a single hot and a neutral, then you can set it to 50 or 60 hertz with just the programming. It's pretty simple.
Well, that's phenomenal. I mean, you guys, it's pretty game changing. I'm kind of surprised that there's no other inverter company that's battery based that have done something similar to this point. But
to give credit to where it's due, I mean, Tom Brennan, our CTO, I will say, I mean, the amount of time that I've been in this industry, that man has been able, to see where the market's going, develop a product, and be forward-thinking as far as the different capabilities. So, just like with Stuart as well, being able to look at the batteries and do that. So this is going to be an awesome partnership, especially in 2022 as we try moving forward and add different features and, powering families through life. That's our motto goes.
Yeah, we do. We keep very focused on that, very centric around that mission. And as Dustin said, we're Texans, so we really it's very easy for us. We only have to bring two things to the world: best-in-class technology and world-class customer support. Everything else is going to work itself out.
It's a great motto.
Yeah, and we have Tom Brennan, so, we just smile and say, catch us if you can.
Yeah, true.
Well, thank you again. I mean, I feel like we could go on too and just continue this conversation. I mean, there's so much going on with solar and with your companies respectively. I mean, it is a game-changing year from a policy perspective, products perspective, so many new things coming to market. I mean, I can't wait to hit the show tomorrow and see all of you guys there. Hopefully at the rally too, if everyone can make it.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm locked into booth duty. I'm gonna have to check my schedule. The Thursday thing is messing me up, but my well wishes go to everybody at the rally and CALSA, the organization, and yourself, and definitely hope that NEM 3 is not adopted in California. So.
Here. Well, well, thank you again, everyone, for coming. David Parker with Sol-Ark and Dustin Douglas. Jonah Small and Spencer Christensen from Lithium. It was great having you on the show today, and look forward to having you guys back on soon.
Yeah, thanks
Our
for having us.
pleasure. Thank you, Renee.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the
thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you.